I am Chloe. I am 40 years old and I have 2 children. My husband, James, is 45 years old and we have been married for 18 years. When we first got married, I was happy. James was kind and loving. He would tell me he loved me every day, and I believed him. Together, we dreamed of building a happy home and a beautiful life. 2 years after our marriage, we welcomed our first child, a boy named Ethan. He is smart and full of laughter. 2 years later, our family grew with the arrival of Lily, a kind-hearted girl who loves to sing. At first, James was a wonderful husband and father. He worked hard to provide for us, and I stayed home to take care of the children. Our days were filled with love and warmth. But over time, James began to change. He worked late nights, took frequent trips, and stopped saying I love you when I asked him why he was always so busy. He would dismiss me, saying I'm doing this for us. I wanted to believe him, so I stayed quiet. But the distance between us grew, and the love we once shared began to feel like a distant memory. One day, I found something that broke my heart, a plane ticket with another woman's name. I cried for days, feeling lost and betrayed. When James returned, I confronted him. He told me, she's nobody. Don't worry. I wanted so badly to believe him. For the sake of our children. Ethan was just 3 years old, and I couldn't imagine tearing our family apart. So I stayed, hoping things would change. But they didn't. The late nights and trips continued, and I knew deep down that the other woman was still in his life. I felt invisible and alone. The house didn't feel like a home anymore, and the meals I cooked brought me no joy. I loved James, but I no longer recognized the man I had married. Then, I reconnected with an old friend, Michael. He was kind and thoughtful, and seeing the way he cared for his wife reminded me of what love could look like. He opened doors for her, listened to her, and treated her with respect. We started talking, and for the first time in years, I felt seen and valued. I laughed again. I smiled. Michael's words made me feel alive, even if only for a short while. When James found out about my conversations with Michael, he was furious. "How could you do this to me?" he shouted. I looked at him and said, "How could you do this to me? I've been alone in this marriage for years." That was the first time James cried in front of me. He begged me not to leave and promised he would change. I didn't know what to do. I was torn between holding on to the life I had built and letting go of the pain that had weighed me down for so long. Then, one night I became very sick and had to go to the hospital. James stayed by my side, holding my hand. "For the first time in years," he said, "don't leave me. I love you." Those words touched my heart, but they also brought doubt. Was it too late? Could I trust him again? Slowly, James started making small changes. He stayed home more often, helped with the chores, and spent time with the kids. He even started saying, "I love you" again. But my heart was hesitant. Forgiveness is not easy, especially when the wounds are so deep. One day, I decided to meet Michael one last time. I needed closure. When I saw him, he asked me how I was doing. I told him, "I'm trying to fix my life," he smiled and said. "You're strong, Chloe. You'll find your way." I thanked him and said goodbye, knowing it was time to focus on my marriage and myself. I sat down with James and said, "If we're going to make this work, we need to be honest. Do you want this marriage to survive?" He looked at me and said, "Yes, I do. I made mistakes, but I love you." I asked him if he could leave the other woman behind and truly commit to us. He promised he would try, but I told him trying wasn't enough. I needed actions, not just words. Over time, we began to rebuild. We took small steps, talking about our days, going for walks, and spending time with the kids. I also started focusing on myself. I read books, went for walks, and wrote letters to remind myself of my strength. Forgiving James was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also necessary for my own peace. Today, James and I are still together. Our marriage isn't perfect, but it's stronger. I've learned that love isn't just words, it's actions. It's care, respect, and showing up even when it's hard. Most importantly, I've learned that I am strong. I can face pain and still find joy, one day at a time. Thank you for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, please like and share this video. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about resilience and growth. Remember, even in the darkest times, there's always hope for a brighter tomorrow.